Welcome to Animorphs Anonymous, the podcast where we casually discuss the Animorphs one book at a time.
I'm Kaycie.
And I'm Alex.
And we're going to talk you through the plot of each book.
But more accurately, take you on tangent trips, factoid forays, and say, well, actually, as much as possible.
Join us on the 1st and the 15th of each month, and we'll take you along on our mission.
And we promise to have you back under the 2-hour time limit.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army.
Did we lose you?
Nope.
Okay. She's just ignoring us now.
Oh, no.
She's like, those fools. Kaycie hates us then, deep down.
No! You guys are just saying such good stuff. I feel like I'm listening to a podcast. It's great.
Oh no.
I'm glad we're interesting. Also, they did really shaky command structure for the Yeerks, like visors and sub-visors, and like.
He got demoted then, right? Because he was sub-visor like 12 or 13, but then in the Chronicles he's 32 or 34.
Yeah.
So he got demoted for all of this somehow.
Probably because they didn't fire on all 4 Andalites like he told them to.
Literally.
Like, why didn't you do something?
Yeah.
But I did. Demotion.
At least he didn't get starved out with Kandrona starvation, because that's what happened to like 36 other people in this book. Yeah. He's like, I'm Visor 12 because Visor 15 was starved and 5 died, and so I just kept moving up the ranks automatically. It's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. Guess if that's what you want to do. Yeah, but here, okay, so this next part is really interesting because of what goes on with Dak here. So the whole thing with Eldrea happens, and Dak is basically trying to get her attention and say, like, you need to teach me about this new enemy. And she's like, I'm not going to tell you that, but I'm going to teach you how to kill them. And so that's very weird, because, like, you should probably just tell him everything. Like,
well, she probably should, but is she lawfully following Ciro's kindness? Because, like, up till this point, up till this point, what has she told him about Andalites?
Not much. She's
exactly.
General
so,
science.
Like, lawfully, she's following the law of Ciro's kindness. So I can't tell you about the Yeerks because, like, even Axe was reluctant to tell them about the law of Ciro's kindness for, like, why he couldn't say things. So I think that's a very Andalite moment. I'll tell you how to fight them because that's an immediate necessity and it's our fault. But you don't need to know what they are.
That's a good point, because I just read it as, like...
And is she embarrassed? You know, like, my family just died, but the whole reason I'm here, the whole reason I know you is we're basically exiled from my society, and maybe she doesn't want Dak to think less of her.
That could be. That makes sense.
Because she's still a kid, too, so she's still playing, like, the popularity game, you know, like... I don't want you to think I'm dumb, like I'm obviously really accomplished, like I have a plan, like you want to appear very, like, and she's kind of losing it right now too, like she's lost her whole family, she's in exile, there's no help, the Yeerks are here, like...
All bad news.
So she falls back on rules, law, order, something simple, like I'm not allowed to tell him, but we can still fight, like... rules, action. I think that's where she's coming from, and it is a disservice to Dak, certainly, but I think it's very accurate culturally.
Yeah, that could... See, I totally missed that when I was reading it. I just read it like she's just so focused on revenge that she couldn't... She's like, I'm not going to bother with all the other shit. I'm just going to tell you what you need to know to serve my purposes. Which I guess still is a very similar kind of concept. I just read it more locally instead
arrogant.
of... Yeah, I read it more arrogant instead of the global overarching view, which is more interesting.
I also had a comment here for, like, Chapter 13, after we just learned about the Council of 13. So is that a coincidence? And then...
Planned it.
And then, this is our death of innocence for Dak.
Yes. Yeah.
Death of innocence right here, like in the 5th element, but less reading and more explosions.
Yeah, I love that it shifted to Dak's perspective, because what could have happened is we could have read it from Aldrea and seen him hesitating and being too scared to take this action. And instead we read it from Dak, who's like, my people don't hurt people. Yeah, we had an accident one time. There was an old, feeble Hork-Bajir who got cut once and died from the injuries. Like, but we don't hurt each other. Like,
right? They don't have war.
Yeah, like, it was like totally confusing to him. He
totally
was
foreign, which is just like mind blowing. I'll reference that in my rant later. But I have another quote on
yes.
Page 75. I felt as though a tribe tree had fallen on me. I thought I had learned so much. I thought I was wise, but I knew nothing. Like, real death of innocence. Like,
super death.
You know?
Yeah, he
like for all of their looking like they're built like weapons, they're not. They're agrarian and peaceful and like
I have no idea.
that poor host of the Yeerk, because like the method okay, I'm just gonna read all of my notes here, because the method of attack after all this time and all of their advanced technology is so limited. We have smoke bombs, we have drugs that can be aerosolized, not in space battle but in melee. You could attack the brain and spare the host's life with minimal damage. Like, so the Andalites, I'm talking about the Andalites here, like when the Andalites fight the Yeerks, not even on the Hork-Bajir, but like they're out in space and stuff, and the Yeerks have taken a different species. I can't remember who they reference. It's not the Taxons yet. It's somebody else.
The Chikoga or whatever?
Yeah. I didn't write down the name. I should have.
I didn't.
But they're still fighting them like, I need to use my tail blade. I need to use these phasers. And they're not, like, they're all attacking the hosts and not the Yeerk. They're not like, oh, their Kandrona rays are over here. You know, their base is over here. If we cut them off, because like you said before, they hadn't even made mobile pools yet. Yeah. You know, like, and didn't they like barricade the Yeerk homeworld or something like that?
Yeah, the Andalites did.
Yeah.
So they, the council was trying to say, the Andalite council was trying to say to everybody that the Yeerks on the homeworld were compliant, but Aldrea was like, well, yeah, the whole orbit surrounding them has all weapons trained on them. Like, they can't do anything.
Like Alderaan in Star Wars. Like, they have, like, a literal, like, barrier around, like, letting people off. So that means that actually means the Yeerks would have had to make a Kandrona ray something or other. Otherwise, as soon as they left the planet, they would have died in 3 days unless they built it in 3 days.
Well, that's what Ciro made one for them, actually. They mentioned that. They said Ciro was the one that, because in the first part where Aloran's yelling at him, he's saying, like, we could have, like, starved them out. We could have solved this problem already, but you even went ahead and gave them the ability to, like, survive out there. So you, like, you fucked us even more, basically.
Right. Just the whole Andalite, like, battle method of attack, I think, is poor, because it's so focused on attacking the hosts and not the Yeerks as a people, not, like, preventing the parasites
and with all their technology, it's not a stretch. But it's like watching the British go into battle like, you know, they do guerrilla warfare and they're like, you can't do that, that's against the rules. And so, like, instead we will just line up and face each other and shoot. It's
in bright red uniforms, in lines, and, you know.
And we'll just keep going, and when you die, we'll send up another line. It's like, that's
why Shaka Zulu won, guys. They need to read some Sun Tzu. And
like everyone else in this book, they need to read Sun Tzu.
Right? They need some help. They're like, and like this actually gets me on my. Oh no, I will wait because there's a better place to go on my rant. But remember that there could be other ways of fighting the Yeerks.
Okay, I will remember this. But yes, so yeah, Dak is confused by everything. He basically is just struggling within himself to, like, be like, wait, how do I hurt somebody? Like, that's just not what we do. And then finally, it's when Eldrea is fighting both of the Hork-Bajir controllers, and she goes, like, down to one knee because she kind of trips on something. And he realizes that Eldrea is about to die if he doesn't do something, so he slashes one of the other Hork-Bajir across the back, gets him right in the spine. The Hork-Bajir is paralyzed. The other one takes off running. I don't think we find out which one is which yet, so I'll save that.
Yes. That is where I said that poor host. Because, again, we didn't, like, incapacitate. Like,
yeah.
Dak had to kill the host. And that doesn't necessarily mean the Yeerk even died.
Yeah, they would have if the host had died immediately, but it's, like, it sounds like he was just there for a long time. Like, just struggling. So, that's really sad. Okay, so Eldrea and Dak are running away from this scene. And Dak is telling Eldrea that his people are doomed. And she doesn't see it that way. She's like, you were born a seer. You're here to help teach your people. You're going to teach them how to fight. And they kind of stop in the middle of running away to have this relatively long discussion about the implications of this. Like, they're like, wait, hold up, let's talk. And so Dak starts saying he wishes he was born to teach his people art and music and things that were beyond them, but beautiful, instead of having to teach them how to fight and how to watch everyone die. And Eldrea keeps insisting, no, this is the path. You must teach them how to fight. They must fight the Yeerks. And Dak tells her either way that his people are destroyed. Either they're destroyed by becoming slaves, or they're destroyed by becoming killers.
I wrote that quote down, too.
It's such a good quote.
So powerful.
It is. And the complete inverse of this is Eldrea has no moral gray area right now. She's like, nope, it's to kill. You have to kill. That's right. It. You just have to kill. That's the right thing to do. So
it's very, like, predatory of Andalite society.
Yes.
And I will throw back to that later. I'm just building up for this rant.
Oh, I'm so ready for this. Their conversation is interrupted by Shredder Fire because they were running away before this whole thing happened.
You know.
And the Yeerks have caught up to them, and so they decide to run towards the deep, and Eldrea says, we'll die there, and Dak goes, we'll die here! So they keep going. They keep running, and when they start seeing other Hork-Bajir, they're yelling at them, run and hide, and there's just Shredder Fire everywhere. So some of the innocent Hork-Bajir are being taken out, and it's...
I have a note that there are two speeds, panic speed and terror speed.
Those are my two speeds. I'm always running on one of those two. Oh, man.
If I'm running, you should be worried, because I don't run.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I'm there. That's also how I work. I either panic work or I terror work, depending on what's going on. So, I feel that deep down.
Hang on, Shredder Fire, panic, running.
Right. And they run to the deep, which was very Lord of the Rings of them. And they are surrounded by this dense blue mist, which we've seen before but never been in. And it's very, very thick and, like, weirdly viscous and has its own, like, weird properties. And also, she keeps mentioning, like, we can breathe it, so it must be fine, but, like, I don't like what my scientific mind is coming up with for what this compound could be.
Right.
Which...
It was a weird...
It never pays off.
Yeah, like, they don't come back to this at all.
No, never. But she mentions it, like, 4 times while they're walking through there. But whatever. She seems fine. Nothing happens. So yeah, they're walking through this thing, and suddenly they bump into a Ged, or they come across a Ged, who is holding a shredder, and he tries to fire it at them, but the dense fog was so thick that it bounced back and started to burn him alive.
I said, shredder backlash, more reason for smoke bombs. Like, we can use this right here. We can nerf their ability to fire at us. Why didn't we do this thing?
If they could just take this blue mist, put it in little capsules.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to fire at me? Sure. Boom. So anyways, they are going through this mist now. The Ged is screaming behind them, burning alive. And then they run into a few more Ged and a Hork-Bajir controller. And the Hork-Bajir orders them not to fire unless they were within 5 feet of them, because otherwise the atmosphere will deflect it. Don't see how that's going to help. It's still the same atmosphere, but whatever. So one of them dodges left, one of them dodges right. They're trying to, like, get away, and one of the Hork-Bajir catches up with Dak and holds the Draken beam to his head. and Dak is about to die when a giant 3-fingered hand reaches down, closes over the top of the Hork-Bajir controller, and just pulls him up into the mist. And then his gun goes clattering to the ground, and Dak just grabs it, like, all right. And the hand reaches...
Does anybody else think this was the Jubba Jubba monster?
Yeah, it's definitely a Jubba Jubba monster. That's my first thought. This has got to be Jubba Jubba.
Like, I want that story more now.
I just want it so bad. It's like the ultimate story is the Jubba Jubba monster. I don't know why this isn't its own series. The Jubba Jubba Chronicles. That wouldn't sell. Just on title alone, that wouldn't sell. I'd read it, but... There you go. Sell 2 copies to us.
It would sell. It should be a song.
Oh, like the
Jubba
Big Rock
Jubba
Candy
song.
Mountain kind of song, but Jubba Jubba monster. Jubba Jubba Fog Cave. The Big Rock Jubba Jubba Fog Cave.
We have a chorus already.
Perfect. Perfect.
Down in the Blue Valley.
Yes. Oh my God. Somebody who has a band, make this song for us. But yeah, so the hand comes down to reach for Dak, and then it is cut off by Aldrea's tailblade. And this is the first time in the Hork-Bajir history that this monster has been defeated. Da-da-da! They leveled up, I guess.
Right?
This continues with Dak and Aldrea walking through the mist, and eventually it starts to get lighter, and Aldrea kind of tries to comfort Dak, saying, like, maybe his people fought, and Dak goes, no, they were taken. They were all taken. Like, they do not know how to fight. It is not a thing.
It took me, like, a full 5 minutes to grok attacking someone. They were all taken.
Yeah.
Like, I am the smartest of my species.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
And it
they
took
didn't even conceive of... like,
they're just like, okay, we'll die, I guess. Like, yeah, they can't. He's like, no, they were all taken. And then he starts kind of getting pissed at himself and Aldrea. But he's like, I could have saved them. Instead, I came with you. So she's like trying to give him hope. And then he tries to manipulate him a little bit by saying, like, well, we'll go back and, like, we'll get a ship and we'll go into space. You know how you love space. And he's like,
you don't have to bribe my loyalty.
Exactly.
Oh, my heart right here. Like, I already chose you. You don't have to bribe my loyalty. Just like, twist the knife.
It's sad, and it's also, like, Aldrea's, like, she said she would be embarrassed if she, like, kind of had any of that sort of emotion left. I'm like, no, you should be super embarrassed right now. Like, you should be horrified at yourself. But she's not. It's, like, the same thing as when he's like, my people will destroy themselves either through being slaves or by being killers. And she's like, nope, they gotta kill. It's like, have some depth. Come on. Right?
I have a note here about neon, not radiation. Like,
yeah.
There's a radiation color. No.
There's a neon color.
There's a neon color. It's bright, maybe even phosphorescent, because we have a lot of, like, biology going on here, but it's not radioactive. You wouldn't see it. You just slowly die over time. Unless you had a good, like, there's a really sweet, biological decay for radiation fields using mushrooms, where, like, the mushrooms eat the radiation and turn it inert, and I'm like, you're a magic mushroom! This is the most awesome thing ever! And it's a biological cure to a radiological problem, and I don't know why more people aren't impressed by this.
That's
like,
really fucking cool!
Right? Like, that is totally something, like, the Orange should come up with, like, we have a radiation problem. Mushrooms!
How did they not come up with that? And especially because that's so much simpler than any other biological form they created.
Like, yeah, like they're literally, like, mushrooms are made to break things down. They made a mushroom that can break down radiation. How cool is that?
That's
like
so fucking
let's
cool.
have mushroom farms. I'm all pro
millions.
Right?
Why is Chernobyl not just a large mushroom farm?
Like, go fund me the radiation eating mushrooms.
Go fund my mushrooms.
Like,
I would pay into that though. That's fucking amazing.
Right? That was like a short blurb that I read like so long ago in like a science news article, and no one was excited about this. I'm like, you don't understand. What? Why are we not excited about this?
That's so exciting. That's like, I got similarly excited about the worms that eat plastic and can digest plastic.
Oh, have you seen the picture of the worm that they found in Antarctica?
No.
I'm going to look this up while you're talking about more things. I have a short note about geothermal heating being, like, super beneficial to all the trees because the core of the fucking planet is exposed. Like, it should be really hot down there. Like, she talks about it getting brighter, but I'm like,
you should
it's
die.
really hot right now.
And
like,
also,
we're volcano hot. Because, like, volcanoes are near the surface, and that's how long the fucking lava's had to cool. And I mean long as in distance.
Yeah.
Distance over time, the lava's had to cool before, like, and it's still warm. Like, areas around, like, active volcanoes is still warm. If the core of the planet is exposed and it isn't, like, rapid cooling, they have to have, like, a force field or something.
Yeah, there's
otherwise,
option.
like, they just, like, crispy fry themselves, like, which would be an easy attack for the Yeerks. Just, like, let's turn off the force field. Problem solved.
Well, even that, all they have to do in that area, since it's already fighting off heat, is just do something to heat it up a little more. And, like...
Yeah. Anyway.
And there also has to be a force field because of all the, like, noxious gases that would be coming out of it.
Right. Presumably that's what the trees are for, actually, to convert the noxious gases into breathable gases, which doesn't make sense because that photosynthesis happens, like, higher
above
up
them,
rather than at the roots, which, like, I really wish there was, like, more, like, we live in the roots of the tree, because, like, they're so far down, like, they should be still connected to the trees at this point, but they're all, like, carved out in rocks and stuff like that, but, like, a tree that big, it's gonna have a huge root system. Like, smaller trees have, like, really deep root systems, so, like, you should have a more organic, especially considering how, like, genetically, you know, influenced they are. Like, it's very rocky and square and stoic, and it should be more, like, organic, moving around the, like, roots of the tree, like a symbiotic relationship where, like, they magically grow fruit down here because we engineered them that way. You know?
Oh, to grow from the roots instead of the top, and then it comes out from the ceiling.
Right, so we can eat something.
Sweet.
They never say what the Arn fucking eat. Sorry, spoilers.
They don't. And they don't. There's also that giant crystal structure in the middle that we
know nothing about.
It was there.
Is this the like, you know, power? Like, is it a crystal power system? Is that
what's, like, feeding the fresh air down?
Right.
Whatever. So many things happening. Yes. So they are going into this new world that we just described, kind of in depth, actually. So there they are. Efficient. We are super efficient. And then we cut back to Esplin and find out that his host body was left paralyzed on the ground all day, basically. They finally find him and drag him aboard the ship, where they put him back into the pool with no host and interrogate him. And all of his answers to these questions, like, what happened? Where did Karger go? He's like, I don't know. So, super great. And then their interrogation is so good that he actually finds out more information from the interrogation than they find out from him. So he found out that, like, 7 other people had died in the mist, and they assumed the Andalite had died too. And Esplin's immediately like, nope, if you didn't find the body, she's not dead. She's definitely not dead. Like,
Batman. He fell off a cliff. That doesn't mean he died. It happened off screen. Yep. It doesn't count. Exactly. So he's like, nope, not dead. And so then eventually he is given a new host a few days later. I wanted a note about that because, like, we reinforce Epson's ambition here, like, because he's using all this information to further himself with, like, very conniving and, like, character building, way more than we normally get from,
right?
You know,
curse you,
bold.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, he's just so much more well developed in here. Just odd. Anyway, my question was, like, because he's talking about the council, who, like, still way outrank him in this. What hosts do the council have?
Well, I don't know now, but just to bring up a gripe I have with the rest of the series, because now, I mean, who knows? But why is one of the council a Taxon? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Right? The Council of 13 was established before this. If it hadn't been, I would say they had a Council of 13 member from each of the species that they had conquered.
Right.
But it was established that they had a Council of 13 before they even left the planet, which, like,
makes no sense.
It's a really odd ruling group.
How did that even come about? But at this point, like, they've basically just got to... They're all Gets. I mean, maybe 1 or 2 other ones, but if
they even have hosts, like I said before.
True, they might just be floating around plugged into their weird computers.
Yeah,
why would anyone listen to them? It's like, oh, I can kill you. Dead. Like, splat. You're done.
So weird.
Yeah, and, like, he got the first Hork-Bajir, so we know that maybe now there's a Hork-Bajir on it, but there wasn't certainly very recently before. And the host they kept trying to take over didn't go over because one of them had that weird brain sent everywhere kind of neuron system.
Oh,
going
yeah,
on.
yeah, that they couldn't,
Yeah, they couldn't use. So.
And was that the information the Arn used, or they just made their ears smaller?
The Arn, when they found out how they were infested, the Arn shrunk a blood vessel in their brain so that if it tried to go in through the ear, that would explode and they'd just die. Which is a shitty solution to this problem. But whatever.
They could have made a Chinese finger trap where they could go in and never escape.
Oh my god.
Because then the host could still live. It would be super traumatic still, but the host would still live.
I mean, they could probably just do a super compressed one in their ear. So, like, when they keep them in there, it's very small, unnoticeable. As soon as they start going in, they have the ability to just start, like, pulling out the trap and, like, oh, got him, like, here.
Right? Like, there could be so much more genetic stuff that they could have done. And let's talk about how fast that they genetically upgraded their entire species.
How?
Like, do they just have, like, this communist line of, here's your genetic upgrade for this week?
They each get a shot. Next.
Thanks.
And, like,
there's no, like, societal, like, politicking, like, oh, the nobles got it first, like, poor schlums can still be taken over by the Yeerks, we don't know, and then there's, like, nothing, everybody, like, blanket,
And, like, what was their QA system here? Like, what are the long-term effects of shrinking a vessel in your brain? Like,
everybody agreed, all at the same time. There were no dissenters who were like, I don't want my ear shrunk.
Yeah.
Or to explode if, like, I'm captured.
Right, maybe I'd rather be infested and have a chance to
'Cause,
live. Like,
yeah, because there's people in our own society, which baffles my mind, who are willing controllers.
Yeah.
Like, there were 0 Arn willing controllers. 0. Like, I get it for the Andalites. Like, societally,
Right.
I get it. But, like, I don't get the Arn.
I don't get the Arn at all. And I don't, like, we don't even know
And they're
what
like
their
bugs.
society is.
Yeah,
like,
aren't they like bugs? I imagine
yeah, they're
them
like
being like bugs.
Feathery bug things.
Yeah,
that
so
are...
like if they're more bug-like, do they have like a queen? And I mean that in like the insect, like, we all serve the queen kind of a thing.
Well, I was even going to say monarchy, who said you are all going to get your ears shrunk or your blood vessels shrunk.
Or even more than that, like a lack of will, like, because we talk
like
about
queen.
in like the termite book or the ant book, like we all serve the queen, we're drones, like there's no, even want to disobey the orders is very difficult.
Yeah.
But like the one Arn we meet is A, not a queen, and B, seems to have their own personality and wants and stuff like that, which is not bug-like.
And, like,
so, like,
complex wants.
Yeah. And they're, so, like, a species with that many complex wants, and there's no dissenters, and all of them were upgraded at the same time. Like, are you like...
Yeah, whatever. It's all very weird.
Yeah.
I have so many problems with the Arn where I'm like, there's just not enough information or time to even, like, be mad at them, because it's like, this is just stupid. Every decision you make is stupid. Well, there is enough time, but the information is lacking, and I would like to know a lot more. But yeah, so they're in the underground structure. There's
the Indiana Jones portion of our adventure.
Where they walk across the scary bridge, which then Aloran's
doing archaeology
later thing. Yeah, they're doing something down there. And then they decide they're going to rest for a bit, which is where we go to the D&D portion of our evening, where they're like, I need to take a short rest. So
they don't put anybody on watch, but they didn't split the party, so we're doing good so far.
Oh, man. I think they took watches. Eldrea took first watch. Okay. And then Dax slept. And then Eldrea was, like, jealous of Dax, because when he was asleep, like, his blades were all facing out. She's like, somebody attacked him in his sleep. It wouldn't be a problem. You just get bladed. I'm like, okay. Something to be weird about, I guess. And then he takes the second watch, but that ends up waking her up, because that's when the cave starts to lighten up, and he starts seeing all, like, the weird patchwork quilt bugs on the wall. Yeah. But at first, they're like, it was just the pattern on the wall, and then as it, like, grew out, he's like, and then there was wings, and then there's a head, and, like, it just kept, like, they're like, these are things! So, yeah. Super bizarre. And then they all, like, get up and, like, jump down to the floor and start, like, walking. And I thought it was going to be they mention right before this giant crystal cavern up there, you would think they would all fly up like bats.
The lights.
Right. But no, instead they just all hop down to the ground and like walk away, ignoring them completely until like 6 angry ones up. You're right. What the fuck? And then like 6 angry Arn come storming at them like, leave, this isn't your place. And they're like, what? And they're like, this isn't your place, go. And that was it. Like until Aldrea threatens them. Ugh.
Super weird. I do want to point out that as much as Aldrea wants to be a warrior, she thinks like a scientist in this situation, analyzing all her surroundings, wanting to gather more information, and she isn't making assumptions.
Yeah.
She's not just like, oh, these are obviously, no. She's just like, they have wings, and there's lots of colors, and they're moving. Like, it's all observations, no assumptions.
Yes.
Which is really interesting. An issue for Aldrea, there's no grass down here.
There's nothing down here.
Like, she's gonna get hungry. There's no more incline. But hey, no Yeerks, so we might as well sleep here.
That really was their, like, everything here sucks. But there's no Yeerks.
Hey. I had a comment about page 107, predator and prey mentality. Because, like, I'm not sure what the world of the Arn was like before the breakdown, but since they made everything else, it doesn't seem like they had predators or prey, which, like, so they don't have that, like, fight or flight mentality that we might almost, so I think that recognizing that colored my reactions to them in my second read through. Like, they have no concept of, like, and neither do the Hork-Bajir, for that matter.
Right.
The closest thing that they have to a predator is the Jubba Jubba monster, but that never comes out from the deep to attack them or stalk them.
Yeah.
They just have to not go in that area, and then they're completely fine, which they don't question because of their...
They
like,
don't have the capacity
don't
to.
go there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Like, but they also, like, they tend the trees. They're completely agrarian, so they have no natural predators. And they have no prey that they need to hunt or track down.
Yeah.
And the same for the Arn. So it's really, like Dax, I don't even know what fight is, is a very true statement. And I think... the Arn also not having that is significant, because they have a very personal, violent reaction to the Yeerks. Like, if the Yeerks try to take me, my brain will explode. It's not even damaging to the Yeerks, because they could have made like a system that the Yeerks just couldn't take over. But it's very like violently attacking themselves, which is odd.
They could have changed the Yeerk biology to make it so they couldn't get into something's ear.
Yeah.
And that never occurred to them.
Never. Like, let's poison the entire Yeerk spawning pool.
Yeah.
Let's give them a genetic virus that decreases their ability to breed over time. So they literally have less babies, therefore less Yeerks. And, like, because breeding should be, like, their first genetic, like...
way to...
Let's give them a mutation that doesn't let them absorb the Canondron rays that they want.
Yeah.
They are now allergic to Canondron rays, but they need Canondron rays.
Yeah, so what's gonna happen? Yeah, that's...
They're allergic to brain fluid. Like...
that would be the best one. It's like, we're not destroying your species, but also you can't take over anything anymore. Right? That would solve
And, like, okay, I'm just going to go on my rant now. Because, like, there's, like, I'm gearing up for this. I was super upset about, like, how they chose, like, not to attack. And, like, I have all these revelations now about them not having natural predators and prey. So they're obviously not thinking about these things. And, like, I have all these rants about the Andalites. Like, tactically, they're not attacking the Yeerks. They're attacking the hosts. They're attacking the ships. They're all, like, space battles. And they're not art of warring anything. And I was super upset about this, especially given that the Andalites aren't willing to help, the Animorphs, or it'll take forever to get there. And I just came to the conclusion that, and you can take this as a positive or negative, that humans are way better at killing things than any other species in the galaxy. We have 5 kids who are fighting a guerrilla war against how many thousands of Yeerks in their bodies, and they're not losing. You know, they're, like, tactically speaking, 5 Andalites would have given up. You know, tactically speaking, 5 Arn made their brains explode. Like, they're just not geared to attack things. So I'm so upset, so fucking angry later at the Arn, where they have a bomb that targets the Hork-Bajir and not the Yeerk. You literally have a gas. You can make a brain targeting agent. There are chemicals, there are biological tracers that attack the brain specifically. We know this. Like, and you can genetically engineer your entire species in less than 5 days to make your ear canal explode if a Yeerk comes in, but you can't make the genetic tracers to only target the Yeerk inside the brain when Hork-Bajir have this lovely lung system, and lungs inhale gas that go directly to deliver oxygen to the brain, and you can't directly target the Yeerks to eliminate them in all the host bodies because you're not human, so you're terrible at killing things. We have serial killers that kill our own people. You just fail. Like, the Andalites think they're great warriors. They're just wrong. We have
so wrong.
History of war. Like, I don't know what the Andalites were fighting before they were fighting the Yeerks, because it looks like they have a military, but I bet they're losing, because humans are just way better. We're space orcs, alright? Like,
I agree with all of that.
Like, there is a great, like, subreddit post on how humans are space orcs. Like, you can shoot us and we'll keep going. You know, humans, like, will, like, cut off their own limbs and bind it up and then keep coming at you. Like, we have endurance. We can eat almost anything. Like, we survive in, like, plus or minus, like, 30 degrees Celsius weather just because wrapping up. We don't even have a reason to go to Antarctica, but we have people living there just because we can. Like, we look at mountains and say, why? There's this great, and I make all these Star Trek references, and I'm sorry, but there's, like, there's this, like, exchange online between, like, the Vulcan and the Klingon, like, why did you let the humans join your federation? And they're like, we had 2 warp capacitors for a research project. The humans asked for 3, strapped 2 of them together, made a star explode that warped them into a different dimension, made the star explode in that dimension to get back to ours after, like, solving a civil war, and then used the 3rd one that they hadn't done, like, used in the first place to complete their original research project of extending the life of a star. And they have broke so many laws of physics that we are writing, like, we have opened up an entirely new school to study it. That's why we let them, like, because if a Vulcan had done that, they would have had 1 reactor and had the 2nd one as a spare. And the Klingons are like, can we join too? We want to fight people in a different dimension. That sounds awesome.
Oh, man.
Like, we're just, like, because in role-playing games and, like, you know, video games and online stuff, like, the human species is always, like, you know, the default, or, you know, not as strong as, like, the orc, or dexterous as the elf, or as hardy as, like, the dwarf, or, like, what other, like, alien species that you have in sci-fi games and stuff like that. I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for being the alpha predator that we are. Like, in order, like, to hunt woolly mammoths, like, 5 of us wouldn't attack it with spears. We would chase it for a week. A week. We would starve it. We would prevent it from eating anything without sleep for a week before it was too weak to move, and then stab it and feed our entire village.
Oh,
like, that's scary as shit. The Yeerks should be afraid of us.
They should be. And to add more to that point, what about just running whole herds of buffalo off cliffs because you wanted pelts? Or, like, even in the Animorphs universe itself, Axe was recently found out that humans fought wars against each other, and he was horrified.
Yeah,
he was like, "What the fuck?
Why would you do
thing.
that?
Why?
Like, you like no like we have xenophobia, but not, like, you know, the fear of our own species." And, like, you know, so like, the first time I read through this, I was really upset at the Arn, like, you don't know anything about warfare. We can do, like, chemical blast and chlorine gas, and, you know, we can kind of hurt the host a little, but, like, like anything that knocks out the brain of the host will knock out the brain of the Yeerk, and then you just need to shackle it for 3 days, and it's fine, so you have a prison system. Like, I have this whole battle plan figured out, and what the fuck are the Andalites doing? Just sitting on their tail stalks, like, I don't know what to do except shoot at them. Like...
We're just really good at it.
Like, and then I had, like, a whole month, because I read this book, like, way back in, like, September when you asked me to do this. So I was like, yeah, let's do this. I'll read the book and everything. And I was, like, all psyched up about this rant, and I just realized that humans are just, like... Because, like, the first time I was reading through, like, they have to let, you know, the Yeerks live because of we wouldn't have a plot of the books and everything. And no. Yeah. Humans are just actually better at killing things than both the Andalites and the Arn. So, like, take that how you will. We have something that we're really good at and that doesn't occur to other species.
So this is, like, even more depressing, but I've seen in the news, since this is very close to Christmas and New Year's, they were announcing that for the first time ever, New York went like a week without a murder. And it's like, that's not an accomplishment, guys!
That shouldn't be an accomplishment.
Shouldn't be an accomplishment.
I think we forget, like, we have, like, such, like, we'll go, like, swing the other direction and go Doctor Who now. Like, we have such great capacity for each individual to be so great and contribute and make connections and be part of a society, and like we can also swing like the exact opposite direction, and like our potential is like astounding, like to go in either direction, like because we can like we'll throw back again to the last podcast. Like we can make Davids, you know, just like complete, like, because nobody said that wasn't a believable human.
No, that
like he was completely, and that's why it's so despicable, because we know it's possible, and like that like haunts us in the back of our mind as a terror. Like a real, like, you know, the possible foils of human nature. Or we could have, you know, Jake in the middle, where like I'm doing terrible things, I'm fully acknowledging of it, but it's out of necessity. Or, you know, we can have Gandhi. And like a full swing, you know, like we make art and war.
And sometimes both at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's...
God. So I was like, that was my full rant. I was really upset with our alien species for just like, oh, you have to let the Yeerks go away when you could have destroyed them. And no, we're just gonna be like really prideful right here and be like, a human would have figured this out better.
Yeah, it's so like that's just so true.
And I can say that because I had that same thought as a kid. I like distinctly remember going, why are you targeting the Hork-Bajir? Like, why would you genetically target the Hork-Bajir and not the Yeerk? Like, you know it's a parasite. You are a genetic specialist. Like, you have the biological knowledge for this. Why?
That's... Man, I mean...
Yeerk virus. Don't even, like, attack the Yeerks directly. Give all of the Hork-Bajir a carrier virus. It doesn't attack the Hork-Bajir, but when something enters your brain, it, like, immediately eats the Yeerk. A Yeerk-targeted virus in a Hork-Bajir host. Like, you can genetically engineer that. It's probably against the Geneva
less than
Accords.
5 days.
Like, you don't have those.
It's not, like, it wouldn't be, though, because, like, the whole thing is it doesn't...
I apologize to everyone for, like, making you think Joy is, like, a terrorist right here. Like...
No, I'm not thinking that at all, because, like, that's such a beautiful solution, because it's like, we are not hurting the Hork-Bajir, we are not hurting the Yeerks, but if you start to attack and try to take over, then it's impossible. Yeah. And, like, okay, yeah, it could be, like, let's cut off their breeding or whatever, but, like, I don't think that when you're trying to enslave somebody forcibly, that melting them in acid is the worst thing.
Right,
like,
and it's only if they're trying to enslave you. You know? Like, because you have to inoculate the Hork-Bajir as a people.
Right.
Which presumably they have some method of doing because, you know, there's still, like, they mentioned that they can still manipulate the Hork-Bajir. And I don't mean, like, psychologically or socially. Like,
they probably could do that too, but...
Yeah, they probably could do that too, but they said it's a problem that they can't get rid of the seers, which means they're still tweaking them over time. You know, which is like, you know, a scary, you know, like, should you have the power of God over another species kind of sub, you know.
Yeah.
Like, Dak gets righteously indignant in here, and that was another, like, when I was in the moment reading that chapter, I was fully with him, you know, like, how dare you, you know, you shouldn't have that power. And then, like, when I got outside of his perspective and I could think of it a little bit more, like... They don't have, like, the Hork-Bajir don't have a religion or anything. So literally, you just met your creator, so you have some more knowledge. Like, it might suck now that you have free will, like, don't mess with me anymore. Like, I'm fine, you know, whatever. Like, maybe ask me if we have, like, a plague that develops out of nowhere, because, like, you can't control all, you know, variables. Like, then we can get some vaccines and, like, you know, deal with that. But you could talk to us about that rather than playing God after you create us. But, like, actually meeting your creator, why would you be mad at someone for creating you? You don't actually have that bad of a life. And he says they're a servant, but, you know, they're a servant in as far as the ecosystem goes. Which is... You know what I mean? Like, so they're not, like, directly, like, you know, feed me grapes off of, like, a dais.
It's like, go live your own life in your own area over there.
Yeah, and you have everything you need to preserve our ecosystem, but it's your ecosystem, too.
Right.
So...
It has to be almost like he was reacting more to the way the Arn said it, because the way they said it was like, we don't want to be tree herders, so you idiots are over there, and he was
Arrogant
more like,
as fuck.
Exactly. So it's, like, more of a reaction, I think, to the arrogance than that, but...
Yeah, him as a person. Like, I can totally dislike him as a person, but I don't think there should have been as much anger for being created. Like, there are really... Like, you weren't bred for war. You weren't bred to, like, die for us in battle. Like, you like to eat tree bark. Like, there are worse reasons to be created.
There's a ton worse reasons. And, like... So this is going to be a really fucked up argument. Here's where we get to see how fucked up I am in the head. But they're a servant of the environment. Are we not all just that? Like,
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, we all have a part evolving in an ecosystem. Like, that's why I'm so surprised there isn't a predator-prey chain for population control. So they would had to genetically engineer
the asteroid was hunting them.
Right?
The asteroid was the predator.
Well, there weren't Hork-Bajir anyway. Like, so they grew unchecked, you know? So, like, but, like, in our own little, like, encompassed ecosystem, there's reasons for our checks and balances, and there is, I would say, a symbiotic relationship between most things, even if, like, narrow-minded, we can't see it right away. Like, in the beginning of the book, we totally don't see a problem with the Hork-Bajir eating bark and tending the trees. Like, there's nothing, you know, like, that's really weird, that's, like, against nature, or, like, that's not... You know, it seemed very natural. They had a society, they had culture, like, the Arn, you know, unless they were, like, tweaking them every 5 minutes or something like that, was pretty laissez-faire with them after, like, you're maintaining the trees, good job.
Yeah. Keep
it
up.
We just didn't want to talk to you. And yes, they did put checks on their intelligence.
Yeah.
So I think that was the worst of their crimes. I think, you know, like, they're specifically putting checks to stagnate their society, but they didn't prevent a society from developing at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, cows don't have a society. But you know what I'm saying? Like, animal level, they don't have animal level intelligence. So if they're literally checking their intelligence, you don't need a society to tend trees.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you really don't. But interesting thing, like, how would they... I guess they've decided that since they had to breed, they have to have some way to interact and communicate. And they're like, well, we can let them have this or what. Like, I could just see how it would grow, but they really didn't do the worst thing.
Yeah.
Ever. And it's, I don't know, it's hard in the series too, because then we look at the Chi who are in a similar scenario.
We never know if they could have negotiated something better. You know, the seer with the Arn. You know, maybe that was originally why Dak was born.
And instead the Yeerks came in and fucked everything up.
Yeah, the Arn, I don't think did a bad thing creating the Hork-Bajir to serve their purpose.
Yeah.
I think they did a bad thing stagnating the Hork-Bajir, but that is a thing that could have been overcome.
Yeah.
You know, especially with, more counterculture Andalites to kind of mediate, because, you know, on one half or the other, a neutral party. Because Arn, their level of technology should have been spacefaring-ish, right?
But it wasn't.
Right?
That was the whole thing. They couldn't
confused.
Get space travel going.
Right? We can genetically modify our entire planet and make trees and stuff like this and have, glowing crystals and not, die from... Yeah, but, you know, Kepler's laws, man. I just can't escape that velocity.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, though. They got to the second moon, where they had 1,000 of them in cryostasis or whatever until the asteroid hit, and then they went back and repopulated. It's
what?
And they had to have been able to sustain themselves.
Yeah, but with that level of technology, they literally terraformed that canyon. It's not really terraforming because that means Earth-like, so they Arniformed.
Yeah, they Arniformed. Yeah, Hork-Bajir formed.
But they could have done that to another planet that wasn't in threat of cracking open like an egg.
And would even
the core of the planet stay warm when it's exposed like that?
No, it would have. It definitely would have had to.
Okay, the crystal thing has to be a dual purpose, gathering geothermic energy and redistributing that energy to keep it in and power everything else.
And
That's
the
what
entire
the crystal does.
canyon is a box of filtration system that they run throughout the core of the.
Yeah. We both spent too much and not enough time with the Arn.
Yeah, they're fucked up.
Yeah. So I had a lot of problem with the Arn. That was my rant. Humans are space orcs. There's a lot of fun subreddits about that. Go read them.
I will, because I agree with that wholeheartedly. That basically just covers the next chapter where we talked about them being in stasis, and the Arn talk about creating the Hork-Bajir, and Dak is really upset by it. So we really that was what we covered was this next chapter. We just got really into it.
Yes.
And then after that, we cut back to Esplin, which we, after that, probably forgot he was even in this book anymore. And he infiltrated the Hork-Bajir, so he says. But that is a very strong word, because what he did was walk up to them and say, hey, I'm a Hork-Bajir, and they're like, cool. And he's like, cool, is there, a really smart one and an Andalite? He's like, oh, you mean Aldrea and Dak? Yeah, sure, they're right over there. No, not a big deal. He didn't infiltrate shit. Super spy. He was, playing up his whole chapter I'm really smart, I did this thing. It's dude, you walked up and asked them where they were, and they gave it up immediately.
You have nothing on Black Widow.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally for chapter 2, I have 3 notes. The spy. The hollow tree, sad face.
Yes, the hollow tree.
And sinister host plans.
And this is a chapter we mentioned she's beautiful, too.
Yes.
Yeah, so the part we missed there was they cut down the giant music tree and filled it with sludge to make it a Yeerk pool. And then Esplin was worried about nothing, so Hork-Bajir were simple. Until the monsters emerged from the deep in a formation, and at the peak of their formation were Aldrea and Dak.
Yes.
And that's when Esplin gazed upon her and was like, this is my beautiful Andalite child. And he was like, I will infest you one day.
One day.
Which is, really weird to be somewhat sympathetic to that cause. And then seeing this, and you're like, oh yeah, why did I like that douchebag again?
Right? The switch, is so...
Yep.
Hair trigger, going back and forth, just... I'll go back to the first chapter, how do you sympathize with the parasite? This is how. This is, and even, a little bit in the back I want to say in the back of my mind in these chapters, I'm like, you're a Yeerk. You're a Yeerk. Like, I'm like, totally get your ambition. Like, yeah. You're a Yeerk. Like,
yeah. And then you see, like, what he's up against and, like, everybody mocking him, and you're like, oh, come on. Why didn't you listen to him? He was right. And then you're like, oh, if they had listened to him, Aldrea would be dead. This book would be over. Like,
yeah.
Anyways. So Aldrea and Dak, what they did was they basically led all of the monsters from the deep into battle. Dak was the one that actually figured this out in the Arn chapter because they were talking back and forth about like taking advantage of people and owning and blah blah blah. And Dak was the one that when they said we don't have any weapons, we just created this ear thing so it explodes if they try to infest us. He goes, well, you have all the monsters from the deep. Let's use them. And they're like, oh shit. Even Aldrea was like, oh shit. Like, everybody was like, damn, this is a great plan.
You're so smart.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been missing for a few days, and then the next time everybody sees them, they're coming into battle with these giant, twisted, misshapen monsters. They're like, look, gazing upon these monsters is a crime against any creators.
So we get a short point of view from Aldrea, right? And she has some sharp bitterness, like, in her chapters, just like she's really committed to this.
Yeah, she is. And she's super committed to this. And this is also when she and Dak have the biggest point of contention in the book against each other because they're both running into this battle and they're passing the other Hork-Bajir, and Aldrea is saying like, tell them to follow you. Tell them, like, you know, you're their seer. Tell them to do as you do. And he's kind of like, all right, guys, like, follow me, but, like, reluctant. And she just becomes this, like, do as he does, do as he does. And, like, repeating this message. And so all the Hork-Bajir are chanting it. And he's like, you've really learned how to manipulate my people. Like, great. Good for you.
Right.
Good for fucking you. Like, you know. And then he turns to her and he says, like, she's talking about leading him into battle and, like, you know, how... what it's going to be like, and he goes, have you ever fought a battle? She's like, no. He's like, you're ready to kill your own people. She's like, no, of course not. Of course I've never had to kill my people. And he goes, at the end of today, I will have killed my own people, and there will be Hork-Bajir everywhere, and it's not going to matter if they're host or not. Like, there's just going to be a ton of death. And like she's... Yeah.
She's just unsympathetic
just
in this moment.
She's
just... She doesn't get it.
No, she doesn't. And he just eventually tells her to shut up. Which was great.
And I wonder if this was like a big... she's so angry right now, it can't be a learning moment for her. But if she, like, it's a distinct moment. Like, it's something that she remembers. This is before, like she said, I've never been in a battle before. So this is before all of their guerrilla warfare starts. And I wonder if she thinks back to this moment, you know, because it's kind of like the disconnect of, like, we have to fight, you know, like, we're a kid, we've never been in a battle, all of the adrenaline, you know, rush of survival in battle, and then the reflection after.
Yeah.
You know, so I wonder if she ever reflects on this after.
I think she would have to. I mean,
I hope she does.
Because,
like, as a moral character, I hope she does.
I think, well, so here's what I think she has to, because this, for me, was the moment that their relationship changed, because up until now, Dak is taking in everything Aldrea is saying, and he's like, you're teaching me, I'm learning from you, you're the one, blah, 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 and this is the first moment where he goes, shut up, you don't know better than me.
You're not a student any longer.
Exactly. And so that's, like, the moment where I think she starts reacting to him and the rest of the book as an actual equal, instead of, you know, telling, because right up until now, she's going, come on, like, drum your people up, you do this, you have to do this, you have to do as I say, and this is the moment where he goes, no. So it's a big moment for multiple different tiered reasons. So I think that she has to, and I think she knows afterwards that, like, after the battle, I think she had to have contemplated this and realized kind of what she's done. Although I don't think she fully realizes it until later.
Yeah.
So the free Hork-Bajir did end up joining the battle because of Aldrea's chant. They are on the front line facing off against the Yeerks, which are the Hork-Bajir host body Yeerks. Dak and Aldrea gave the simple command to the monsters using their head chip mind control doodads, and the command is simple. They just keep telling them to kill. So they rush forward, and they're being shot by the Hork-Bajir controllers that have the Draken cannons, and shit's just going pretty bad. Like, monsters are being completely, like, torn up by these Draken beams. And that's when Aldrea takes off, because her mission in this battle is to get to a ship and to get a message to the Andalite fleet. So they start going through, they're fighting, killing each other. Dak committed the final atrocity at this moment when he gets up onto the top of the music tree and sees it filled with all of the Yeerks and all of the masks. He starts fighting his fellow Hork-Bajir, and that is when all of his people follow. So that's another big moment.
Yep.
But Aldrea cuts to her perspective. She runs to the first ship she could find. The guards had all rushed into battle, so she basically just waltzes into the ship with nobody stopping her. She opens the communication to the Andalite homeworld and starts her message when suddenly a Hork-Bajir comes at her from the side, and he knocks her down and pins her, and she's yelling like, "Fine, kill me," but the Hork-Bajir said he didn't want to kill her, he wanted to infest her, so
dun, dun,
we can
dun.
take a guess at who this might be. So he tried to knock her out, but there was another trick that he knew nothing about. She starts to morph the Jubba Jubba monster, which is the coolest fucking morph of all time. So,
and we don't even know the story of it.
We don't even know anything about this monster other than he's got a giant 3-fingered hand that picks shit up and eats it. Like,
right?
That's great. I love this monster.
I was picturing Jabba the Hutt.
I think it has
With
to be
a
more
hand.
mobile to be scary.
Yeah, just like sludges out of there slowly.
Like,
he'll be here next
Jabba
week.
the Hutt sounds like the pinnacle of Yeerk, you know? Like, one day we could be Jabba the Hutt, the giant slug
Giant
with hands
Yeerks.
and eyes. Like, that's what they hope to evolve into.
Yeah.
Like,
That-
intergalactic crime syndicate family. Like, it seems accurate. I believe this is how the Yeerks will evolve.
Star Wars could have taken place in the same universe as
it's
Animorphs.
fine.
Just like many, many years later.
I don't know what happened to Andalites, though. Anyway.
They just
Yeah.
eradicated them. They were like, we don't need this shit.
They did what I said, and they finally morphed everyone, so they're everywhere. The ultimate spy.
Yes, the ultimate Andalites are everyone.
Yes.
They're never mind. Anyways, before I continue down this thread, so she morphs to the Jubba Jubba monster, and she picks up the Hork-Bajir controller, and the monster wants to kill it, but Aldrea has control of the morph, and this is her mistake. She pitied the Hork-Bajir, so she threw his unconscious body out of the ship and resumed her communications, and the Andalites are now aware that the Yeerks have invaded the Hork-Bajir homeworld. We cut to Dak, and he's fighting alongside of his people. He's committed terrible atrocities that day, and the monsters are mostly destroyed. I think there's like a few left milling about, I assume, but for the most part, they're dead. And he says that his people were making history by killing their own kind. And then he sees a bug fighter rise up in the middle of this battle. The bug fighter has no idea who to fire on because, of course, there's no way to differentiate the controllers from the regular Hork-Bajir. And so then he hears Aldrea's Thoughtspeak command to get his people off of the tree. So he does. Then she fires on this tree and sends this torrent of sludge and Yeerks, like, just rolling downhill. And the Hork-Bajir that were controllers take off. They're like, fuck this shit, we're out. The Hork-Bajir that were free turn their sights onto these slugs and just start cutting them up, and I assume probably stomping them as well. And then Aldrea, she gets out of the ship and sees them, like, cutting up all of these Yeerks, and she's horrified at this, which is just, like, insane to me, but okay.
Yeah, she had so much bloodlust, and yet she couldn't kill that controller, and she's disgusted by this.
She has a lot of anger, but she doesn't actually have military training. And I'm not even going to say, like, military background, because obviously she doesn't have background experience. But I feel like, I hope in Andalite society, that's something that they talk about, like, can you take a life, like, what happens in the moment of battle, like, your adrenaline thinking versus, your normal, logical, like, thinking. Like, that's, like, that's why you spar, right?
Yeah.
So that you have automatic actions. That's why you go to a target range as a police officer and you aim always for center mass, it needs to be muscle memory so you don't think about it.
Yeah.
You know? That's why we have psych evals for, you know...
Should be everyone.
Yeah, should be everyone. But, like, after a shooting specifically, like, police officers are required to go see someone and talk about it, and then all of the paperwork for each bullet fired, like, all of that stuff. But, like, in a militaristic society, I hope, like, even if it's a non-Andalite, again, like, I can't even tell if Andalites are predators or prey. Like, you know... Because they have, you know, genetic markers of both types of species, and, like, again, going back to humans, like, we look like prey, but we're, in fact, an alpha predator.
Yeah, and that's, like, the same thing that happened to them, because at the beginning of this book, Aldrea actually does talk to her mom about that, and says, for one time she couldn't sleep for several days, and her mom goes, that's because we used to be prey. And that's, like, so that's totally, like...
You know, so, like, it may be, like, especially for Andalites, then, if they used to be prey, like, their military training has to get over the initial flight response and, like, change it to fight. Yeah. You know, to be the first reaction. Because obviously they have good defenses, the tail blade, the, like, looking behind us, like, in both directions, and running, presumably, because 4 legs and leaping, like, Axe. And his epic
entrances and exits, for that matter, jumping backwards across an entire swimming pool. It was pretty epic.
NBD. Like, no big deal. But, like, so she doesn't have any of that training. So she's angry. She wants to fight, but she has none of that muscle memory, hit first, ask questions later. Right. None of that, like, battlefield, like, you know, awareness, or, you know, like, recognizing the person next to you as an ally, like, because the Hork-Bajir that they're fighting with have no way of knowing who's a Yeerk, except, like, they hit me first, and, like, that's the whole reason we have uniforms in war, right? Like, you know, obviously a bad guy, obviously, like, red versus blue, like, we don't have any of those distinguishing markings, so, like, let's make this battle even more sad. How many Hork-Bajir killed their friends because they didn't know if there were Yeerks inside? Yeah. And you just nick somebody with your, like, blade by accident. Oh, obviously a Yeerk, cut him down. Like, we don't know. And, like, that's one of the terrifying things about the Yeerks. Like, you don't know. Like,
and the fact that they can play it so well. Like, there's very few times that the Yeerks give away a tell, and most of the time it's when they see an Andalite, and they, like, oh, they looked furious, you know, and that's how we could tell. But, like, they almost let Jake go when he was infested. They almost fell for it. Yeah. And it was only because Cassie had the intuition, and then Axe surprised him, that they figured out, like, no, he's infested.
Yeah. So, like... So, like, I kind of appreciate that she did hesitate. You know, it was a little bit, you know, contrived, obviously. You know, Epson gets away to fight another day. Very snively Whiplash. Like,
he would tie them to railroad tracks as well.
Right? Yeah. But, like, in the same vein, like, she does have all this anger, but she doesn't have the military experience nor the military training to back it up. She just has a lot of misplaced anger.
Yeah. And even the ones that do have the military training, like, Elfangor wasn't good at tail fighting through his entire training until he got into his first real battle, and then he was able to kind of, like, go into his own mind and take himself out of it, and that's when he became, like, known as a very scary tail fighter. But, like, before that, he still, like, all the time would overthink it and, like, get hit and, like, you know.
So she's not battle tested, and, like, I like that shows. Yeah. Because I feel like this is the battle that we get the most detail in. Like, later it's like, they had a fight. Like, they ran away.
They
had a fight. Like, you know, but presumably in those battles, like, she gets less and less hesitant.
I would hope so. Because otherwise, there's a reason their guerrilla fighting team had a 75% casualty rate. Right. Hope it wasn't her.
Yeah. We don't know, though.
We don't know. It could have been her.
We just need some Sun Tzu. Like.
There's so much, like, I never realized until this read through taking notes how much Sun Tzu there is in these books. And now I'm like, why is this everywhere?
Well, a while back, it was probably, like, I'm not sure if it was in a Jake book or somebody referencing Jake reading more military history. Mm-hmm. And I wondered kind of if that was a nod, like, that Applegate made to herself. Like, I read a bunch of battle shit so that I would know, like, about these things for the book. And maybe, like, not to, like, verbatim or, like, mirror battles, but, like, so she had that reference in the back of her mind for, like, battlefield strategy versus guerrilla warfare, like, army versus, you know, ad hoc army, like, you know, the advantages of fighting, like, with mutants that, like, need a lot more battlefield room versus, you know, a phalanx or, like... Like, we don't even talk about, like, the Hork-Bajir are weapons. They don't even think of making weapons, but that means they also don't think of making shields. None of them have armor. Right. Again, the Arn aren't using, like, chemical warfare or well, they do use biological warfare, just really shitty.
Yeah, they're like, just bad at it.
They're just really bad at it.
Yeah, that's...
like, you know, because, that pisses me off so much that it's Hork-Bajir targeted, because there's no saying that, like, the Yeerks couldn't just crawl out after their host dies.
Yeah.
Like...
Yeah. It's just brutal.
I don't even know if we comment on that in any of it. Like, if the host dies while the Yeerk is in it, can the Yeerk just crawl out as long as the head wasn't fractured?
If the host has died already, the Yeerk dies with it.
Okay.
Because it's connected to the brain. But if the Yeerk was on the way out while, like, if it starts abandoning the host while it's dying, it can get out before the host dies.
It's an interesting distinction.
Yeah, we've seen it very rarely, but a couple times we have seen it.
I know we have seen it. It's just interesting to me that, like, let's say somebody gets cut in half. Obviously, that is a mortal wound, you know, but it didn't hit the brain at all, you know? So I would totally see the Yeerk being, like, shocked or stunned or, like, overwhelmed with, like, pain stuff. But could a Yeerk then withdraw and exit out the ear? You know?
I think it depends on the Yeerk. Like
maybe there could make, you know, basically a will save and then escape.
Yeah.
But, like, I just... biologically, the Yeerks don't make sense to me, because, like, they go through all of the brain, so I guess it makes sense then if they're, like, too interwoven with the host body. When the host dies, they die.
Yeah.
And that would make sense if they're recoalescing, why a blow to the host doesn't kill something that's recoalesced. But, yes.
They don't make sense, so... They also, I don't know why they would develop a thing to numb the ear canal, whatever they're crawling into to begin. Like, there's a whole bunch about them that...
You know, why ginger maple oatmeal?
Why ginger... Instant ginger maple oatmeal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You read all of these war stories. Maybe a couple biology lessons. Okay. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she's reading the war books now. And that is the important thing to take away.
Totally important. Yes. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. I did have a note. I think. Are we on chapter 26 by now?
Good question. I would have to count.
Okay. Well, I have a note. It's in a DAC perspective, so we'll say it fits in here.
Okay.
I personally am glad that Dak is feeling the weight of command, because it means that they're not the monsters that they're fighting.
Yeah. Yeah, that was perfect timing, because this is right where we cut to the 7 months later, where the Hork-Bajir have fought and won the small battles and lost land and resources and different trees and all sorts of things. There's really just this one stronghold left over of guerrilla fighters called the Hork-Bajir army. And they are spread out a little bit, because they mention that they have some, like, at other camps, but for the most part, there's, like, I think at this point when we get there, there's, like, 200 of them left, and they started with, like, or there's 400 left, they started with 2,000 of them.
Yeah.
So they've taken insanely huge casualties, and the Yeerks have basically taken over the planet.
They started with 2,000 and there's 200. They're literally decimated.
Yeah. But I think there was 400, which ruins the decimation.
Okay.
It was I think it was, they start with 4,000, have 200. Because otherwise it was they start with 2,000, have 400, and that mathematically I think is not right. But anyways.
They have a lot less.
They have a lot less.
It's not looking good for our heroes.
It's not at all. And then the Arn hated them, basically, but they kept bringing weakened and injured Hork-Bajirs to the Arn to heal. And that's kind of where we end up. Is we're we cut to Dak and Aldrea with a Hork-Bajir talking to the Arn, and that is actually when the Arn tells them that they did the whole ear thing so that their heads would explode if a Yeerk tried to get in there, and then Aldrea says that's stupid because now the Yeerks will just destroy you because they see no need for you, and if there's no need for you, then they just destroy you. So good luck with that. And then the Arn are like, we're mad, and kick them out. So they return to camp, and that is when someone points out that the stars are odd that night, and Aldrea looks up and she's like, space battle! And so our Andalite fleet is here. The Andalites finally land, and they want to take Aldrea to the ship, and they call Dak her pet and say he has to stay here. And Dak basically says, no, you can bring your leaders to us, and turns around and walks away. And Aldrea went with him, which was a big deal.
A nice show of solidarity.
A nice show of solidarity. And then the next thing you know, the Jahar has landed, and Aloran steps out, and he's like, what the fuck? He's basically like, why'd you call me here? And he only wants to talk to Aldrea at this point, and so he keeps dismissing Dak and saying, okay, nice, we know they're all idiots, come on, this isn't funny anymore. And then Dak basically starts telling them how hopeless everything is. He's like, so they're mining for XYZ resources. They've taken over this forest on the left. They're building a ship that we call the Blade Ship. It's this big, and they have many more resources for other ships. They have a giant cannon, so what else would you like to know? And he mentions at this point saying, there's the 2,000 of them down to 400, and one of the Andalites there looks at me and goes, you've taken a 75% loss? And he was like, I didn't work out the math, but yeah. So, it's great. And then there's Yeerk ships attacking the Jahar, and they have no time to talk anymore. It's great.
Yep. Super great.
Super great. We cut to Esplin. He has been promoted now and is controlling a ship, and he has some guys under him, and it's all great. And,
there was a quote from, Dak's perspective.
Yeah.
So I think Aldrea says that, and it starts, was that wise? They've come to help. Dak, no. They've come to kill Yeerks, not to help.
Yeah. And Aldrea then says same thing, right? Right after that.
Right? And I think... you said before, the student surpassing the master, the first time he said no, and that Dak might actually be getting, maybe not smarter at this point, but definitely wiser.
Yeah. For sure.
Than Aldrea right now. He seems to be learning more from this war than she is. Because that distinction is important.
Yeah, it is. It so is. And I'm glad he called it out.
Jumping out to the meta, this book just feels like terrible, terrible foreshadowing for if and when the Andalites arrive on Earth to help.
It's gonna...
in 3 years.
I mean, every interaction we've had with the Andalites, and it's been few outside of Axe and Elfangor. There's really not much. But every time they are called or come into the scene, they are just...
a poor cavalry.
Very bad. And, when Axe is trying to tell them, what happened... Axe is trying to say, hey, listen, I'm stranded on this planet. The Yeerks are invading way larger scale than we ever thought. There's so many hosts here that this is going to be your downfall. And they're like, so you want to talk to your dad? Tell him your brother's dead? No, dude! I want to fucking tell you military intelligence! What the fuck?
Just a kid.
Yeah, they're like...
Doesn't matter.
We only picked up the phone because your brother was Elfangor. Fuck you, dude!
Right?
Did you learn nothing? Oh, God, that makes me so mad.
And then, was it in a Chronicles book where they went to a different planet where they had to get behind enemy lines and like set off these bombs, and each one of them was popping back in time.
That was book 18, Axe's last book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I love Axe. But like that was like a powerful book, not only because like one of the Andalites turned out to be a traitor to the people, you know, kind of a thing. But those Andalites were fairly sympathetic, and they did actually listen to Jake. You know, like Jake's like, I'm a prince. You know, I was elected by Axe. Like,
all one of you voted for me.
Right. You know, but I mean, he walked in there with authority, and like the Andalites actually recognized it. Not too dissimilar to Dak being like, this is the shit that's going down. Like, you know, so I think that's an interesting thing to see, like, such a prideful species be like, oh, like, you are acting with authority, and I will automatically almost fall in line, you know?
Yeah, and that one, too, I think they had a lot of respect for them when they banished them back to whatever room in the ship, and then when everything's crashing and shit's going crazy, they, of course, all start demorphing, and they're like, oh my god, these genius children, like, it was like... they thought they were so great, and it's like,
right?
Well, yeah, they are, but...
And I just think maybe that speaks to human adaptivity, too. Like, you know, okay, we're here in this situation on an alien planet, and adapted, and let's do this.
Yeah.
You know, like, really, really tooting the human horn today. Yeah. like, sometimes we're pretty cool, guys.
And sometimes we're really, really shitty. Like, oh, man. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to point out that interchange between the two of them, like the distinction between they're here to kill, Yeerks, not to help.
Yeah, and that was very intelligent of Dak to acknowledge as well.
Wasn't that also where she said, you didn't believe me because I'm a female and the daughter of Zero, and we were in, like, you know...
Yeah, when they start, like, because Aloran is saying, right before these Yeerk ships show up, he said, like, no, we sent, like, 2 fighters and a transport ship, like, what are you talking about? And they said, either a week before or a week after they got her transmission, they got intelligence that there was a Yeerk force gathering somewhere else in the galaxy, so they sent the entire military over there, and only sent a ship back to the Hork-Bajir homeworld to pick her up, basically. And she was like, oh, okay, great, because, as you said, I'm the daughter of Zero, and I'm a female, you don't listen to me. So, very nice, assholes. Yeah, so it's bad. Yeah. And then we cut to Esplin, where this is a chapter where I not only got on his side, I was rooting for him, which blew my fucking mind. Basically, what happens is he's promoted, he's controlling a ship, and the Andalites that are near enough by to come try and help them are answering a distress call that Aloran put out. So, like, they're getting one-off fighters that are, like, dropping out of Z-space around there, and some of them are even surrounding the planet in Z-space and, like, dropping out, fighting, going back into Z-space. So Andalites are coming, but, like, no military presence. It's, like, you know, just, like, one-off kind of things. So, some Andalites drop out of Z-space, and Esplin goes to fight them, and he's, like... He has fought, like, or studied them so well that he's, like, watching the Andalite ships come at him. There's 2 of them, and he goes, what they're going to do is they're going to come directly at us, and they're going to drop below us and fire on us from below. And everybody's like, okay, whatever, like, blah, 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 big Andalite lover here. And so he literally, as they're coming at him, he waits, and then he's watching other people fire on them. It's completely useless at this range. He drops his ship down, shoots one, and blows up the Andalite ship. And I'm kind of like... Yeah, you proved those guys wrong. And then I'm like, oh no, this is bad.
This is the wrong side.
This is the wrong side. I'm cheering for the wrong
I'm sorry.
I just got swept up in this narrative. I'm sorry. And
yeah,
then
I have Yeerks play Minecraft and then Space Invaders.
Yes. Basically what happens. And then he drops down into atmosphere and takes him over a giant cannon and like blows off one side of the ship, and the Andalite ship goes spinning and crashes. And I'm like, yeah, you won the battle. And I'm like, no, fuck, you won the battle. Like, I had
This is bad.
so many problems with this chapter.
Behind enemy lines.
Right. I kept cheering for him, and then I was like, no, stop it.
And there are, he's now Sub-Visor 12.
Right.
And there are 9 Visors.
At this point, yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. So he got demoted after this, I guess, before Andalite Chronicles. Ay. Yeah, and then we have, like, another, like, cut back, and, like, we get, like, over the next few months kind of a thing. We find out that the Andalite and Hork-Bajir armies both get destroyed. Andalite fighters are, they're popping in and out of space, like we said, and they're just trying to help. And over the months that this has been happening, the Andalite numbers have gone from 2,000 to 400. There we go. Yep. And the Hork-Bajir army has shrunk to 12.
Yes.
Like, it's fucked up.
Yes.
And they are all mostly living with the Arn, including the Andalites.
I have a note for, like, Dak and Aldrea for, like, I love you. No, you don't, but thanks for saying.
I like you too. We can be best friends. Oh. Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And, like, I gotta keep going. I want to bring that back up, actually, in a little bit. So I'm going to keep going, but I'm going to circle back to that for sure. So they are living with the Arn, and one night when Dak is in his living quarters, wherever that is, underground, he notices that there's some Andalites, like, low-key guarding something. And he points it out to Aldrea. He's like, those guys, they just pretend they're talking, but then they leave, and 2 more are there, talking forever. They're always there. So they're like, let's go investigate. So Dak and Aldrea go over, and the guards basically insult Dak. They're like, oh, you're stupid, and dismisses him. And Dak and Aldrea, like, walk a little ways away, and Dak just loses his shit over how he and his people are being treated, which I think you had brought up earlier. Like, he was like, just because we're stupid doesn't mean we're any less
worthy. Like,
yeah. And the 3 races here are all using us as pawns in this big stupid game. Like, the Yeerks want to infest us, the Andalites want to, fight with us, the Arn created us for their purposes. So, like, he just, like, loses everything he's been struggling with this book. He just kind of, like, dumps on Aldrea in this moment, and she, like, says 1 or 2 things throughout the conversation, but it's nothing of importance. It's basically just Dak saying, like, what the fuck to everybody. So,
like, finally venting
after years at this point. Yeah, over a year at least. So, yep. And then once he's done yelling, he and Aldrea just hug for a really long time. And then Aldrea says that she'll help him break into whatever the Andalites are guarding, and promises that if it ever comes down to choosing between her people and him, she would choose him. And Dak's like, I don't believe her.
Right, and that's where I have the, I love you. No, you don't. But thanks for saying it.
Exactly. And then there's another good one later. Anyways, soon. I'll keep going. I'm so excited. So, Aldrea goes to Aloran and says, what's in the room? And Aloran wouldn't answer, so she pleaded and even grabbed his hand and said, please tell me what's in the room. But she was, of course, just acquiring his DNA. She doesn't need him to tell her what's in the room. Like,
right. This is, like, the first spy thing that she's done. I was actually, like, kind of impressed. Like, she's just like, I have this idea. It'll be fine. I'll play up, like, my womanliness and his, like, dismissal of it.
I'm just a poor little woman. I don't know nothing.
Even asking directly about it, too. And then, like, going off in a huff. Like, it's very, did you take an acting class? Like...
Just one. Yeah, like... Man. Yeah, she did. And then also... But then, like, this was ruined for me because there was this very heavy-handed moment after... where Dak confronts her because some other Hork-Bajir saw her going to Aloran, and he's like, you went there, didn't you? And she goes, oh yeah, I just went there and acquired him. And he was impressed with her, and she goes, it was just like this, see? And, like, grabs a Hork-Bajir and, like, acquires the Hork-Bajir. And it was, like, this heavy-handed moment of, like,
right,
we all know what's gonna happen. And also, you've been living among the Hork-Bajir for over a year. Why haven't you already made, like, a mixed morph of multiple of them?
Right. I thought that was odd, too. Like, she only really used the bird to get around with Dak and didn't want to go climbing with him, which I get. Flying is awesome. All that good stuff. But it is odd. And she didn't even have, like, the very impassioned, like, Cassie, we can't acquire the whales without the whales' permission, like, self-battle. No. She's just like, this random person, I'm gonna be you. It's fine.
She just acquired 2 sentient species within an hour and was like, I'm gonna use both of them. Fuck it. Like, right? She doesn't give a shit.
Questionable morals.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, so she, like, did that weird heavy-handed thing. And then they do the mission that she came up with,
I have a problem
basically.
with this.
Yeah.
Because, like, she turns into a Lauren.
Yeah.
And she's like, only the balance is different. What? Like, you have a penis now. Like, no dick jokes. Definitely avoiding all of the dick jokes. Like,
Jake just had to apologize for his butt in the other book. We cannot talk about dicks.
But, like, gendered animal, like, morphs are avoided so often. Like, I realized that in this moment. Like, they all say, like, we acquired dolphins. No one said if it was a boy dolphin or a girl dolphin. Like, does Rachel have a male bear?
Yeah, she's the only one that's called out. She's like, I have a male elephant, a male bear, a male eagle, and she's the only one that they're really, like, she has male morphs.
Right?
Like,
and that's interesting to me. Like, if we can throw back all the way to the beginning of this, where I said, like, Sue is the larger, like, you know, T-Rex. There are certain, you know, advantages or disadvantages to being a male or a female morph. Right. Like, let's just go with birds and plumage. Like, there's certain, like, birds that are more, you know, camouflaged because, like, they don't have the colorful plumage to attract the mate. Like, that's totally a thing. You know, maybe not be a male spider because they get eaten.
There's like, multiple.
Or they acquired all of those, and it's certainly easier to acquire all of the drones for insects, and we probably won't be going back to that. But none of them acquired a queen, and then it would be really weird because what if they had a lot of babies?
Yeah,
it'd be really weird.
And also, they like Jake would have to be the queen because like. Can you imagine, like, anyone else bossing them around? It would just be really bad.
And, yeah, so, like, they don't go into gendered morphs or anything like that, and, like, literally only the balance is different. Like, it's still a new body, you know?
They did say the large tail blade, which could have been a very veiled dick reference. Like, very veiled. But yeah.
They're like birds. They're aerodynamic. You know, Andalites need to run faster, so it just is not there. Like,
it's fine. It's fine. Totally, it's all fine.
Totally fine.
Yeah.
And I'm just, like, I don't know if I noticed that on my first read through. I'm like, oh yeah, it's not weird being, like, you know, like, like...
It would be so
But, like,
weird.
like, even humans have all, like, even if we would just have the jokes, you know, like, there's plenty of, like, body swap things where guys are like, tits, I have them now.
Great, I've always wanted these.
Right?
Like,
they're right here. How do you not always look down? Like, stupid stuff like that. They could have been, like, one joke, something, like, I feel like I want to fight something. Like extra testosterone. Like, because there's a lot more, you know, differences than just... My balance is weird.
Yeah,
like,
there definitely is. And, like,
you know,
she would also be going from a teenager to a fully grown body. Like,
yeah, like...
There's a lot of differences.
Right? Like, just a couple more sentences. I didn't want to,
No, she was mostly like, I got bigger and got a better tail, and I was a little less balanced.
Neatly glossed over.
But she does, like, immediately afterwards distract herself with her own rant of, like, and women are even better at morphing, it's proven, but whatever, assholes. Like, okay, like, weird feminist moment. I'm like, I support you, but, like, okay. Like, yeah,
so, like, moving on to the actual mission, I love the, like, page 177, fortunately, computers don't understand the concept of suspicious questions.
Yeah, she goes for it with that computer. Computer, what is everyone working on? What's it do? What? Who's it affect? Like, literally, she's like, oh, man. Yeah, they break into this room, her pretending to be a Lauren, and just question the computer. And, like, this is... the moment that we already knew about, but coming back to fruition here.
Yes.
Is Lauren has ordered that they create a quantum virus that wipes out a single species and causes death within minutes, and he created this quantum virus to destroy the Hork-Bajir.
And not the Yeerks.
And not the Yeerks.
Not the Yeerks.
Just the Hork-Bajir.
Literally, you have like a genetic specialist that you could not only like target the Yeerks on this planet, but maybe like get a claim and win the war off planet?
Yeah.
I don't know. No?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. We just want to focus on
The
Hork-Bajir only.
And they never like bring up this weapon ever again. I want to point that out as well. Like Aloran survives, you know, and he never uses this again, even though the Yeerks still have Hork-Bajir shock troops.
Yeah.
So they don't even focus on that part of the army.
No, I mean, he did become disgraced right after it, though, right? I'm remembering that right?
Not immediately. Like, I think he was still fighting.
Active for a while.
And even if he wasn't, like, some female could have been like, I can use this grenade that they developed.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, I guess it is kind of Andalite to be like, he's disgraced. Any weapon that he developed during this war is obviously useless.
It's inferior to mine. I am not disgraced.
I am not disgraced.
Yeah, I could totally see an Andalite doing that.
Okay, yep, humans are just way better.
Yeah. We're all like, hey, if it works. Like, okay, I will continue, because we are getting so close to the end now. Eldrea orders the computer to put all of the virus created so far into a canister. She then turns against her own people, and she said, like, this is completely unacceptable. The Andalites do not do this. We do not destroy sentient species. I am on the Hork-Bajir side now. And Dak was like, oh man, I didn't believe you when you said you were on my side. And she's like, no, I fucking lied to you. But, like, now I'm on your side. And she straight up says that to his face. Like,
right?
He's like, I love you. She's like, I'm on your side. And he's like, that's a lie. And when finally they have this moment where he's like, oh, you do love me. She's like, no, I fucking don't. It's just, we can't do this. This is way worse. Like, oh my God. This is like my early dating career at this point.
In this black moment, she was my true friend.
Yeah. No, dude. She's still just thinking, like, for herself. But whatever. Anyways.
Oh, and I have this note, like, all she's done, and Aloran still does not name her. He doesn't refer to her by name. Still.
Oh, shit. Aloran still doesn't respect females.
Right? Like, I threw that in there, because, like, I thought that was, like, a nice, subtle Andalite dig at that moment. She has outsmarted you. She's acquired your morph. She's discovered your entire plan. She's been on the front lines fighting for how many months with you? Like, she's taken major losses, but she's been in those fights.
Yeah.
You know, like, not for one moment did I think she's like, oh, the Andalites are here now. I'm going to take, you know, the back seat. You know, I think she's out there, like, in the fray. So, like, still, after everything, Aloran still does not name her.
Such bullshit. Such bullshit. Aloran's such a dick. Why am I against him? I should be against the Yeerks. Instead, I hate Aloran.
Right? He's so much more sympathetic in, like, Axe's book where we meet him and he's, like, very tortured.
After he's broken and
please
destroyed.
talk to my family.
Yeah.
He doesn't mention his family once in this.
No.
No.
I mean, he brought the Jahar, which was his wife's name, but that's, like, as far as it goes.
Right?
Like,
you know, and he's even a little bit of sympathetic in, like, the Andalite Chronicles until he's like, let's explode all of them. But, like, given this.
Yeah.
Like, given this happened before then, like, go back and reread that. Like, Aloran's like, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
And it was bad. It was, like, really bad, guys. Like,
yep.
No?
Let's just stop this right. Yeah. No, this is.
So.
Yay.
So I do feel bad for Aloran, but, like, I do think, you know, he should have at least said her name. Like, you know, that's all.
It was so simple to do.
Very Destiny's Child.
When no one is around. Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Otherwise, I'm just going to start singing Destiny's Child, and we will never get out of here. Oh my God. So they steal the virus. They go running out into the middle of everywhere. And their big plan is to throw this canister into the core of the planet. But multiple things kind of happen at once. So Aloran is alerted that his lab was blown up and the people were, like, pulled out of the way and blah, blah. So he's down there. He spots Eldrea and Dak with the canister. He knows what it is. almost immediately. But then there's bug fighters that come tearing through the cavern and start shooting at everything. So there's the Arn that are dying, there's Andalites that are dying, the Andalites start shooting back, and like all this fucking chaos is happening, and then the fucking blade ship just comes cruising through there, like, okay, I guess this is happening now. But in all that chaos, Aloran keeps his focus on Aldrea and Dak, and he is going after them. In fact, he comes running across that crazy bridge that we talked about earlier without looking, and Dak was like, wow, he's so brave. Like, they took a moment to stop and be like, he's super brave, if nothing else.
I really wish, like, she had made, like, a balance comment, you know, like, I'm worried about his balance on his bridge or something.
He's very ungainly. He's probably going to fall.
Right. Right.
It's not like me. I can walk across the bridge.
I was him a few seconds ago. Like, I'm much better at this bridge thing.
Exactly. I can handle his bridge. What's this dickhole doing? Jeez. That would have been good. But instead, it's just like Dak being like...
Yeah. Very brave.
Very, very nice. Very good bridge running.
Very noble.
Very noble bridge running you have going on. And then that's when Dak goes, I have an idea. Let's jump. So they jump to the core of the planet, but land on the blade ship. Aldrea and Dak are both very injured, but still alive. And then Dak asks if they can throw the canister into the core of the earth, but they're like, I don't know if we're still over there. And like the blade ship has now maneuvered out of the cavern, is over some forested area. I think they were unconscious for a little while, but it was kind of very hard to tell, so... Yeah. Anyway, so he's like, all right, one more jump. And so he hands the canister to Aldrea and, like, grabs her up below her belly. And, like a sheep, I guess. And then jumps off the ship into the trees and, like, is able to kind of, like, grab and swing through the trees.
This would have been a good moment for her to use her Hork-Bajir.
Yes, yes. Instead, it just continues on for a moment where, like, after swinging through the trees for a while, he's like, okay, can you, like, morph to your Chadu morph? And then she's like, I have a better idea. And that's when she goes Hork-Bajir, which is great. And then she says if he dies, then she dies along with him, and then they share the Hork-Bajir version of a kiss. But it's cut short because Esplin shows up.
Yes. I said it was very... Romeo and Juliet with more space battles, and at least they had time to think about the death part.
Yeah. These poor kids, these crazy mixed up kids.
It's very Shakespearean. Like, we have the story inside of a story, we have the Romeo and Juliet themes going on. Like,
it's their internal need to be together despite their battles of their families.
Yes.
And,
They also, like, did a mention that an Andalite kiss is stroking face with palms?
Yes.
Okay, they were cut off.
Okay, they were cut off by Esplin, who has shown up with guards. He's taking them as his prisoners, which is fun. So he has his little ship there. He can't fit all of his guards and his 2 prisoners now into the ship, so he decides that they're going to get into his little bug fighter. They all do. His guards have guns trained on Dak and Aldrea, who is still morphed as a Hork-Bajir right now because she is, you know, solidarity, man. And they're going to rendezvous with the blade ship, but they can't because the blade ship apparently went back into the caverns again. Who can tell? The ship just is fucking around doing whatever it wants. So then he starts to try and interrogate Aldrea, and she refuses to demorph. And this is how Esplin learns of the time limit. And he says something like, you can't stay in that body forever. And she's like, yes, I can. And in an hour and a half, I'm going to have to. And he's like, there's a limit to these morphs. And she's like, yep, pretty much. So he's like, cool, that's great. And he's like, wait, I have a brilliant idea. I'll just infest her right now and force her to demorph. So he holds his head next to her Hork-Bajir head, and he starts crawling from his host into Aldrea, and he can just, like, feel, like, almost as his fingertips, for lack of a better word. He can, like, feel, at the end of his little nose nodules, he's like, I can feel the intelligence, and I can start to see some of the memory. Like, he's starting to connect with her, but as he gets more into her head than his host heads, he starts to realize the depth of his mistake, because his host body is now uncontrolled, and it just goes buck wild and starts taking out the guards and, like, killing off whatever. And now Aldrea is free to move away from him as she wants, and then somebody pulls him out of Aldrea's ear, and the only thing he gets, other than him now being blind and helpless, is the one memory of Aldrea as an Andalite running freely across the plains of Andalite. So
that was a poor plan.
It was a very poor plan.
Like
it was a very poor plan. So after the chaos of everything is kind of done, there is a freed Hork-Bajir standing there with a guard that is incapacitated in some way. And then Dak says, "Can you remove my shackles?" to Esplin's former host. And he's like, "What, shackles? What is this word?" But doesn't matter. Aldrea comes to soon enough and guns him off. It's great. They just leave Esplin crawling around on the floor. Nobody really does anything with him. And they just have this moment where they're all, like, just exhausted. Like, this is just all being too much for them. That so much shit has happened to them. They just don't want to fight anymore. And then the bug fighter starts spinning out of control, and there's heat and an explosion and everything. They were hit by an Andalite fighter who saw the bug fighter and was like, fuck it, gotta shoot it down. So they go careening down towards the ground. They end up crashing. The side of the ship's torn open. Dak passes out when they hit the ground, but then he wakes up again and he sees Aldrea, and he asks her if she's a Hork-Bajir, and she goes, yes, forever. The time limit has passed. So that's super fun. She says she was looking for Esplin, but didn't find him, and there's a small chance he made it into the river. And the speculation of where he might have gotten to is cut short by Dak going, but where's the canister? And Aldrea's like, shit, I forgot! So
right,
they like...
There's a lot of, like, convenient moments in here. Like, conveniently, she didn't have to choose to be a Hork-Bajir.
Yeah.
Conveniently, nobody killed him when he was lying helpless on the floor. Conveniently, there was a stream nearby, and conveniently, they forgot about the canister.
Yeah.
Also, like, a Yeerk almost opened the box, like, when they first captured them.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, curiosity did not kill the Yeerk.
So close, though.
So close.
So close to killing him. Yeah, it's not great. But yeah, so anyways, they're looking around, like, going, where's this canister? So the guard that got free, or the host that got free, he comes up to them, he's like, this canister? Basically, but one end of it is open. And as they're staring at him, like, they start backing away because they're slightly upwind of him. And as they do that, they see his face starting to, like, contort and bulge and, like, basically melt off. And they start running because this is the virus. The quantum virus is released.
Yeah. And I had, like, it was just so sad because God had known it was important.
Yeah. He did his best.
It was just,
And it killed him.
Oh.
Yeah. It's not great. It's horrifying, really. So they decide, like, all they can do is to try and find a valley or somewhere where the virus won't reach on the wind for some time, somewhere where they can hide out, and they can hope that some of them will survive. And their story ends with, all they have left is hope. As did the Andalite Chronicles. Same message. And then we get the epilogue, which is pretty fun. The story fades. We're back to Jara's around the campfire with Tobias and the other Hork-Bajir, who are all asleep, so they're like, we've heard this one before. No biggie.
Right? How do you sleep through that? What?
I don't know. I couldn't. Like, what the fuck?
That's my exact reaction. How do you sleep through that?
I don't know. I really don't know. And then I just did, like, a pretty rapid-fire ending here. So we get, like, Jara says that the son of Aldrea and Dak was named Ciro. And they have this thing about, like, that's not a normal Hork-Bajir name. And Tobias is like, yeah, guess that, bro. And then after Ciro came Jara. So he is Ciro's son. And then Jara says that Toby is their daughter. And Tobias was like, great, sometimes it's hard for us to tell. And then he lets him know that Toby was named after Tobias. And Tobias is touched by this and says that's a strange name for a Hork-Bajir. And Jara agrees and says, but Toby is different too. Then Tobias is like, okay, great. And he, like, packs up, starts to leave. He's, like, heading out of there. And he's like, wait a minute. By different, you mean? And he's like, that's right. Toby is a seer as well. And in that moment, Tobias is also filled with the joy and hope he had been looking for. And he flies off, keeping an eye on them for as long as he can. That's the end of the book. What did you both think of the Hork-Bajir Chronicles?
I mean, this is one of my favorite. And I had a lot of different thoughts, like rereading it the second time from when I originally read it in middle school. I remembered most of it though, so like that was pretty cool, you know. Like some of the nuances I did not remember, so like reflecting on that is pretty neat. Coming at it like my then perspective as a child and my now perspective is.
It's weird.
Yeah, I totally remember being upset with the Arn targeting the Hork-Bajir as a child as well. I'm like, no, it can target any species, and you picked that one?
Kaycie, what did you think?
So, I guess the main impression that I got from this book is, like, how much respect I lost for the Andalites.
You can't see, but we're nodding.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're nodding and like, yep, pretty much.
I mean, I appreciate that, like, from the beginning, they're built up as, like, this super intelligent, great, amazing race, and then over time, we're kind of realizing, they kind of suck, and, oh my god, they're really racist, and sexist, and, wow, they're horrible, and elitist, and that makes me appreciate my baby boy Axe so much more, because, like, obviously he has some of these traits, like, when we first meet him, like, he thinks he's, you know, kind of superior and that Andalites are superior, but, you know, as time goes on, he's realizing more and more that that's not the case. So I appreciate that he'll be kind of, like, the exception to the rule, and I appreciate Elfangor so much more now, because he was not like that. And Aloran's such a dick, oh my god.
Yes, he is.
Even Zero I was getting really mad at, because he was just, like, constantly in denial and constantly dismissive, and I'm just like, no, please stop this.
So what did you think of Aldrea then?
Oh my god, Slytherin as hell. Like, that's basically my descriptor of her. She's just the most Slytherin character I've ever met.
That's fair enough, yeah.
Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. I thought she was really, like, complex and robust, but definitely some questionable morals.
I mean, I see the high ambition, like, of your Slytherin house there. She definitely had ambition even before the war. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's also, like, I know a lot about, like, good Slytherin versus evil Slytherin, and, like, a lot of that is just her, like, I want to do so much more and be so much more. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, because she's using it in a sort of constructive way at first. But she definitely will step on whoever to get there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Except she draws the line at, like, genocide. So, like, there's
She draws a very clear line at genocide. Like, yeah.
You are on my side. Well, I'm really against genocide.
She'd be, like, all up with Voldemort right until the point where he's like, we're gonna kill all the Muggles. She's like hell we are! I'm on the Muggle side now! Fuck it! Like, it would just be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
There's a lot of complexities. And, like, there's literally a thing at the end of this book that's, like, yeah, so according to Miss Applegate, the Hork-Bajir Chronicles is a book I've wanted to write for a long time. I wanted to show that most stories of conflict are more complicated than any one side would have you believe. Not that good and evil are impossible to find or define, just that reality is usually a little grayer around the edges. So, like, she accomplished that.
Absolutely.
She did what she set out to do.
Absolutely.
Well, any closing thoughts on these books? I guess we should get to that.
There's a lot more interspecies relationships in these books than I thought.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like this is the second, like, Andalite hooking up with another alien species.
Did you see Aldrea's ass? But, like, the morphing technology just kind of, like, negates it.
That's why they came up with the morphing technology.
That's why.
That is our clear motivation.
It was the sex party Andalite tribe. That's kitty corner to the beard tribe. Oh, God. What I like about, like, because we make a lot of jokes that are, like, kind of, like, crude and, like, you know, it's interspecies stuff, like, oh yeah, that's hilarious kind of thing. But what I like about it is that so much of it is not, like, because it is a kid's book, we're not coming at it from, like, a super sexualized angle. It's more like they understood each other so well, and, like, personality wise, and, like, they clicked, and that's more of what drives it, other, like, you know, rather than pseudo-sexual thing. Yeah, exactly. It's more like they just worked together, and so that's it, you know, whatever. Yeah.
And because he was the only other male on the planet.
Right, and because he was literally the last man on Earth. Except not a man and also not on Earth, but still.
You know. It's fine.
As the saying goes.
Actually, like, most of the Andalites that landed probably were male, so, like... Yeah. Like, I kind of wish they should have made, like, a blade joke, well, I have more blades than you do.
Oh, that would have been good. And that would have gone over every child's head.
Right?
And then we would be reading it now, we'd be like, oh, how dare you! Oh, man. It was probably just they had better balance than the other males.
Right. I wonder about Zero the Second, because, like, it was such a point of contention between Eldara and Dak in this book, but they would have had a normal Hork-Bajir.
Yeah.
How do you...
Oh, yeah. Is being a seer, is that genetic?
Well, it seems like it is through the line, because Toby is related to Dak.
Yeah.
But it looks like, Jahami, is a regular Hork-Bajir, and presumably his father, Zero, was as well.
Yeah.
So...
Because we didn't hear anything about, like, Zero being...
No.
Super intelligent.
I mean, it could just be the Elemis, sticking his hand in the cookie jar again.
True. I mean, I don't know. It would probably be fine to have a simple child. Like,
I'm not saying it's bad. I wonder how Aldera would deal with it, though. Because, like, I'm going to teach you astrophysics. No.
I'm going to teach you how to throw a stick.
Right?
Lesson for today.
It's sad to think about, like, if she would have loved her child less. Or if she would have, after having a child, like, grown even more as a person. Like, we didn't get to see that character.
Maybe she asked her child as soon as it could talk if it would commit genocide and loved it if it said no.
Half a star. You begin with half a star.
Perfect. It'll grow on me. I just need to know the genocide thing first.
Solid foundation.
Yeah. Oh.
Like, I like Bark.
Bark's good. Yeah. All right. Yeah. No, I mean, I could see her going either way of like being like the end of Hunger Games where she's like, I had this child for you, like, kind of a thing where I don't feel anything for it because I'm so far removed, but I had this kid for you, versus like she sees it and like she falls in love with it and she's like, this is my child and I love it no matter what.
Yeah.
This is my baby.
This is my baby. This is my idiot child. He may be dumb, but he's my idiot.
Full-on soccer mom.
Like, driving to Bark practice in her large van.
The baby.
She gets that weird haircut and needs to talk to a manager.
I would like to speak to your manager.
No. Oh,
I wonder if Andalites even have games like soccer. Like, would you get too full?
They mentioned in the book that they have that space ball.
That's true.
Whatever it is. Space balls.
The sports ball.
Sports ball. Yeah, sports ball. Wait, is that what it's called? I think it was sports ball.
I want it to be blitz ball, but that's a little Final
Blitz
Fantasy.
ball! Oh my god! Oh no, I haven't thought about that in years.
And now you have.
You probably haven't thought of Are You Afraid of the Dark in years either.
Yeah.
But that's totally the beginning setup of this book. Do you want to hear a story? We have a
fire.
fire.
Throw the powder into the fire. The tale of the Hork-Bajir.
Yeah, and then you actually, like, go into the fire, and it is the rest of the show. Like, this was Are You Afraid of the Dark Andalites edition.
It's sad that she liked watching TV at the end of this book, too. So she's probably, like, watching Are You Afraid of the Dark, and she's like, got my open.
Yep. Done.
Write that down. We're done here. Send that to the publisher. Cash that check next week. Oh, Chronicles.
Super fun. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Like, just,
lots of good stuff.
Yeah, a lot of really good conversation. Will, if you want to email us about Stegosaurus Squirrel, it's at anonymousanimorphs@gmail.com. That's the one that's backwards. Then we have a Facebook group, Animorphs Anonymous. We have a Twitter at Animorphs Anon. We have an Instagram at Animorphs Anonymous. Then we have a super secret hidden Facebook group. That's the Andalite Bandalites, and that's facebook.com/group/Animorphs Anonymous. This is where I hand it off to Kaycie.
Oh, yeah. If you want all of your podcast searching options for Animorphs Anonymous, you can find us at GooglePlay, iTunes. I almost said Apple Play. That is not a thing. iTunes, Google Play, Pocketcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Republic, or just Google us. We're also on Spotify, which is exciting.
I know,
You
and
should
new.
probably not search Apple Play. I feel like bad things will
Ooh,
come up.
not with your safe search off, that's for sure.
What?
And on that note, Kaycie, tell us about your comic book.
I have a comic. It's called B-Side You. That's BSIDEYOU. I just got Patreon. I'm on Patreon. So you should look me up at patreon.com/Kaycie D Studios, and you can get some links to my comic, and you can read my comic. And it's awesome.
Sweet.
I think.
It is. It is.
Love me. That's all. That's all I got.
Perfect. That's everything. So
Yeah. I think we have good content.
we have much content. If not good, it is a lot. So we can make like a tree and get the fuck out. Just a stolen saying, but it's relevant because there's a lot of trees in this book.
There are a lot of trees.
Buy trees, for trees, all about the trees.
Mm-hmm.
Except saving them. We cut so many trees down.
It's
This is the most wasteful book.
The Hork-Bajir are sad.
Yes, they did not like this. They're like, you print on our food? And I was like, eat my book. It'll be fine.
They should totally have an Hork-Bajir eating a book.
Is that like eating like a super processed
This is
food?
like prepared
Yes.
bark.
It is. Yeah, it would be like, this is like preserved for you. You're right. It would be like eating Cheetos or something.
Oh god.
That's hilarious.
All right,
Oh,
see you
man.
next
Okay.
time.
All right, we're leaving. Bye.
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 Thank you, Joy.
Thanks, John.